Welcome to today's Cabinet meeting here at Newcastle Borough Council. Welcome to councillors and officers in the room and my fellow councillor in the public gallery, and also to anybody that's watching this online, either live or after on YouTube. Remind members to use their microphones so that people will be able to hear. And also, we don't have any public speakers today, but also I'll need to say also make sure mobile phones are on silent and also your laptops. Okay, we'll move to the agenda in a second, but first I will do the usual introductions for Cabinet members. I've got Craig Scalding, Portfolio Holder for Leisure, Culture and Heritage. I've got Jill Heasom, Portfolio Holder for Community Safety and Wellbeing. We've got David Hutchins, who's the Portfolio for Sustainable Environment, and Councillor Andy Fear, to give him his full title, Portfolio Holder for Strategic Planning. And then sitting next to me is Deputy Leader Stephen Sweeney, Portfolio Holder for Finance, Town Centres and Growth. And I'm Council Leader Simon Tagg. We'll move to our first item, which is apologies. All Cabinet members are here today, so we don't have any apologies. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Do we have any for items on the agenda? Not seeing any from Cabinet members, thank you. Item 3 is minutes of the last meeting, which are attached from page 3 to 10. I'd just like to give a verbal update to this point on item 10, which is the urgent business which came to Cabinet relating to devolution local government reorganisation white paper. There were a number of recommendations we put forward which were agreed by Cabinet. One of those was to refer to full council. A series of recommendations. I'm pleased to say that the full council backed those by 25 to 15 votes on the night. And actions that have come out of that is a petition has now started to save our borough. That now has approached almost 2,000 signatories in less than a week, and a paper petition is being launched pretty soon. I have wrote to the local government minister, Jim McMahon, to press the case for the existing devolution proposals that have been put forward by the Staffordshire Leaders Board in September to be considered as a way of delivering devolution without the unnecessary cost and disruption of local government reorganisation. I will say that since we last met at Cabinet, as I've got the MJ magazine here, push back to the government's power grab on reorganisation, and I think there are a lot of noises taking place across the country. The LGA are beginning to be a bit more ferocious against it now, and also we were supposed to be having I think we discussed it at Cabinet, we're having more information on the criteria for going forward with this forced reorganisation. I believe it was 2 weeks ago. We didn't have it 2 weeks ago. We didn't have it last week. We're due to have it this week. It seemed to be delays from the government. We've seen the minister having to re-clarify his comments relating to this, and it does seem a bit of a mess. So hopefully the government are using this time to think again, so that areas such as Newcastle, with our historic independence and good local council delivering for local people, continue to do that for the foreseeable future. Thank you for that. So with that, can we agree the minutes of the previous meeting? Thank you. That brings us then to our first item, which, as always, is our Wally's Quarry odour issues. I'm going to hand over to our Chief Executive to give us an update on the picture as we see it at the moment with complaints, with monitoring equipment. But there is some news today, which I think will go into more detail. Gordon will in a moment, that Wally's Quarry, there's a legal ruling that has gone against Wally's Quarry Limited in their bid to reopen the quarry, a landfill, before the appeal against the closure notice. That has been turned down today, and it will remain closed even though there is an appeal process. But that is a victory, again, I believe, for local people to keep this place closed until the hearing of the Planning Inspectorate. I've also called, since our last meeting, for the Secretary of State, Steve Reed, to call in that application to use his powers to do the appeal sooner rather than later. But I'll hand over to Gordon now, who will give us the update on the last month on this really important issue that affects our residents.
Great. Thank you, Leader. And as you note, this has been a long-running issue. So this report follows the format that we've used since 2021, when Wally's Quarry first came into the council's domain, and the council has used its powers since to help move things forward. So the update report is in a similar format to those previous reports. In terms of the data provided, the report provides an update over the last 3 months, November to date, focusing particularly on data from January 2025, which I'll expand on in just a moment. The first thing to note is the odour complaints. Those odour complaints increased further in January with a total of over 1,600 received in the month. and we're still expecting a number to come through retrospectively as people log them on the system. And we continue to encourage people to make complaints to keep that data live. It should be noted that in January, the number of complaints was above those reported every January since the start of this incident in 2020. And a complaint number of this figure has not been recorded by Newcastle-under-Lyme Borough Council since July 2021. So, what that's telling us is that residents have had a particularly tricky early start to this year. There were 24 odour events in January. An odour event is where 10 complaints have been received in a day. So again, pretty consistently throughout the whole of January, challenges there. In respect of air quality data as set out in section 2.16 of the report, this shows that the levels of hydrogen sulfide fluctuated, but did show increased levels in January. There was an overall peak being shown in the week of 6th to 12th of January, with between 37% and 56% exceedance across the monitoring devices, the MMFs. The KPIs shown in Appendix 3 also show the 5-minute peak hydrogen sulfide concentrations were measured across all 3 MMFs on Christmas Day, with a range as set out in the report of 585 to 1,347 micrograms per metre cubed. That is high. And the complaints we've received continue to correlate well to this air quality data and the World Health Organization percentage exceedance. The graph in section 2.17 of the report pack shows this correlation throughout the period. As we reported at the last meeting of Cabinet, the UKHSA did undertake a risk assessment, the details of which are contained within this report, and we would encourage residents to look at the EA Engage page for that information. Sections 2.19 to 2.20 provides updates from the Environment Agency through compliance assessment reports. These relate to management systems, operational procedures and engineering works. Obviously, we are now in a closure phase, and the report also sets out where we are on that journey. A couple of updates since we published the report just this week. It is fast moving as ever on Wally's Quarry. Firstly, to note that the planning inspector has agreed to Newcastle-under-Lyme Borough Council being a party equivalent to Rule 6 at the appeal hearing. So we will have a seat at that table for the appeal. And secondly, as you've noted, Leader, an application was made by Wally's Quarry Limited for interim relief to stay the effect of the closure notice pending the determination of that appeal process by the Planning Inspectorate. That case was heard at the Royal Courts of Justice Planning Court from the 30th of January. The judgment has been read out this morning, and while we wait full details, we can report that Wally's Quarry Limited's interim relief and judicial review applications were refused. Happy to take any questions on that basis.
Thank you, Gordon. Yeah, I think it's been, as you said, a really horrible beginning to the year for residents that live around this quarry and in the wider area. We've seen some eye-watering monitoring data, haven't we? That has now dropped off slightly with a change, I believe, in the weather. But interesting that Mary's Way, which will be the wind direction of the milder weather, will be pushing it in that direction, has seen an increase on the previous week, up to 27.4%. So this is still an issue which is causing concern to our residents, and the complaint figures throughout January will reflect that. I think also we had the capping issue, which was going to be resolved by the 31st of January, so a few days ago. Interested to see how that affects in the coming weeks. And we are, I believe, promised to have a cold snap again, which will lead us back into the weather conditions where the odours are much worse and do hang around the area and slip into town and into the Westlands and Westbury Park and up to Maybank and all around as the still hair keeps the odours tied down. So I think we're not out of the woods yet on this. I'll open it up now to questions and any comments from Cabinet members. Andy.
Thanks very much. As ever, one's heart sinks when we see the data, and I can only agree with what the leader said, that this has been a dreadful beginning of the year for some people in our borough. I do, on the other hand, very much welcome the judgment I've just heard about today, that the site will remain closed while the appeal goes along. I also welcome the fact that we will have a full seat at that table under the Regulation 6 material. So I think our hard work is making progress. Again, I think, got to re-echo what Simon has just said. We're in this for the long haul. We're not going to give up, and it is really helpful for people to continue to put those complaints in to make sure that we can see that there's a demonstrable basis to say that this problem isn't going away and it needs to get sorted out. So at one level, as ever, these things are a bit pessimistic, but on another level, I think there have been some things which are going in the right direction. Let's hope that the cold snap doesn't generate an enormous nuisance again. I'm not holding out much hope in that regard, but nonetheless, I think there are some things which are going in the right direction.
Steve.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, I don't want to repeat what Annie's just said, so I won't. However, when you look at section on the report that is 2.26, it gives a timetable of when everything's happening. And when you read this timetable, February is very much a happening month. It all seems to be happening now in February. So I think by the end of this month, I think we should hopefully know where we are, because it all seems to be happening in February, up to the 28th of February. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I second everything that Councillor Fear says, and I'm glad to see that the Wallis Quarry appeal to reopen the site has been overturned. Now, there seems to be, I'm going over a little bit off what Councillor Fear said, there seems to be a direct correlation between complaints, weather monitoring data increasing, and weather conditions. Now, all I can say is I urge all the residents of Newcastle Borough to carry on with the complaints, keep logging these complaints, keep them going, because I think the residents of the borough deserve, they've got a right for breathable air that's of a decent quality, and I don't think that this should be normalised as it's correlated with the weather conditions, and that's just how things have become. So just all I can say is just keep complaining, keep complaining. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Great point. I think whether that's to the Borough Council or whether that's to the EA on their reporting system, keep those complaints coming in. I think obviously we want to see this resolved, and of course the appeal against the closure notice is the next thing which we will be concentrating on. Of course, we're now a party around the table to aid the EA in its case. And we'll obviously wait for that date to come forward. We'd like to see that sooner. I think the Secretary of State has a role to play in this, and we have called on him to bring this forward sooner so we can have some resolution. And we'll see over the next couple of weeks whether the capping, which of course the EA called permanent capping, which the operator called temporary capping, obviously is showing some improvement as well, no matter what the weather is. But I think unless there's any other comments, I think we've obviously discussed this, got the latest updates, seen the hot off the press news today, which is a victory for local people to see that the courts and the judge have resisted allowing Wallis Quarry to reopen before their appeal has even been heard to the original closure notice. So that is good news for people today. All agreed? Thank you. That moves us then to item 5, which is the revenue, capital budgets and strategies. And Steve's introducing this item.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. This is a combination of a fairly lengthy process. If I can just go through it briefly. This report presents the refreshed medium-term financial strategy and the final proposals to balance the 25-26 revenue budget and the proposed capital programme for 25-26 to 27-28. It also includes the drafts of the capital strategy, treasury management strategy, investment strategy and commercial strategy. Savings and funding strategies have been identified to address a 1.890 million budget gap for 25-26 via a vigorous efficiency board process, been agreed with managers as being both feasible and sustainable, have been scrutinised by the Finance and Performance Scrutiny Committee. Despite a 4% cut in our so-called core funding from the government, we managed to significantly below inflation council tax increase of 1.99% per Band D property is again proposed. This amounts to 10 pence per week or less for 95% of households within the borough. Now, I think this is an excellent example of local decisions being made by local people, i.e. the residents of Newcastle, to achieve this quite significant achievement. The savings identified enable a continued contribution of £250,000 to the Borough Growth Fund. This will continue to enable investment in the council's priorities, including significant investment in boosting the sustainability of the environment within the borough and supporting development of the town centre. I'm also pleased to confirm again that the savings proposed do not include any redundancies. The capital programme for 25-26 to 27-28 is based on new schemes which are vital to ensure continued service delivery and assisting the council to achieve its corporate and service objectives as set out in the council plan. These schemes total 94.6 million, of which 23.7 million relates to 25-26. This includes schemes to regenerate the town centre, including schemes partially funded for major investment into the borough, successfully secured via the Town Deals Fund for both Newcastle and Kidsgrove. Delivering the capital programme for 25-26 will require prudential borrowing to be undertaken. The impact of borrowing is included in the MTFS. The proposals enable a balanced outturn for 24-25 and a financially robust budget for the council for 25-26, both ensuring the council's continued financial sustainability and protecting services that our residents value. I think this is an excellent budget. I think everybody's worked very hard to achieve this, and I think it's something I absolutely and totally support. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for your work and also the finance team's work on this. Of course, this will go from here to full council next Wednesday, where we will set the budget. As you say, a 1.99% council tax increase, investment in services, particularly in civic pride. There's a whole section on that in the report about the civic pride and our new civic growth fund as well, which will allow community groups and others to apply for things that will enhance their community and bring pride back into their community, as well as the Borough Growth Fund, which predated that. You can see on page 42 and 43 the improvements that has brought in various areas of environment, our town centre, and in digitalisation of the council for improve better services and make savings as well. So I think hats off to the team that have balanced this budget for us. And I think, as you say, Steve, a perfect example of how a local council can actually achieve what it wants to achieve in its locality, and we should be left to get on with that. I think all that regeneration, which will be funded via, the measures within this budget, are going to show a complete difference to our town centre. We've already seen that last week with the opening of Keele in Town, the new base for Keele University in the town. That's on the back of the Astley Centre for Circus, which is at the edge of Fog Lane. We've seen the Astley, what's it called, place? Old York Place is beginning to obviously be stripped back, ready for redevelopment. The new car park is opened on the edge of the Rycroft there, the Newcastle car park, which will lead to the regeneration of the Rycroft site. Therefore, also meaning the former Midway car park can be redeveloped. So we've got a pipeline of schemes here, and this council is committed to delivering those for the people of Newcastle Borough. And I don't think any other council will be committed to doing that in any reorganisation that the government may force upon us in the future. So we're just going to get on with the job, and this budget does that today with a low council tax increase for our residents. I think it's quite right that you point out that 4% reduction in funding to what we were going to have, and that's a result of this government, this new Labour government's cut that has come in here. And there are other councils being affected by this, and they're immediately tying it into also penalisation of keeping the council tax low. We've seen the government allowing large eye-watering council tax increases across the country. We are going well below inflation, well within what we said we would do when we got elected in 2022, and we'll be penalised for that. And other councils are being as well by this government who wants to push tax onto people, and obviously by not raising the national tax, they want to make us raise local taxes, and we're not going to be doing that above what we want to do within our plans, and we've kept to those plans, and that's what we will be presenting to council on Wednesday night. Open it up to comments and questions now from any cabinet members. No, I think we obviously had a good go at this on the last cabinet meeting, and we'll also obviously be speaking in support next Wednesday. So a series of recommendations here, which we wish to forward to full council. All agreed? Okay, thank you. The next item is the Finance and Performance Review Report. I'm having sort of an OCD attack here because this is usually last on the agenda, so I'm not used to bringing it forward so soon. I think we got mixed up there. It's usually the last item, but we'll deal with it now. First one is the finance and part of the report. Anything further to add, Steve, on what you've already said about the budget?
No, highlights for me are the fact that we're £49,000 on the revenue budget underspent at the moment. Forecast to be £9,000 by the end of the year. So this is quarter three, so it's 9 months into the year. So I think that's very encouraging. I think as well, if you look, we put loads and loads of information into this now. I think we got criticised a while ago, and I don't know why, because I don't think much else we could put in here really. But it's an interest to know that the High Street Fund part of it, as opposed to the town deal, is almost all spent, and we've got out through the door working for the people of Newcastle. I think we're well in front of the queue in the country for getting that done. But that's it, Lee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Point to note there about the underspend again, monitoring the budget throughout and keeping living within our means, which is part of the job we're here to do. Right, we'll move on to the performance indicators. As per usual, we will go through section by section. Our first one, which I'm just reducing on the screen so I can actually see it, is our local one council delivering for local people. And if you go through page one there, we'll see the first one, I believe, is the there's a red there for David under business inspections. I may have jumped ahead of it, but we'll deal with this bit first, David. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, we had 85.7% of premises were inspected on time. Now, between April and December, 12 of the 14 inspections have been completed on time, but the 2 inspections that were not completed on time due to staff unavailability were in 1 quarter. So the late inspections within that quarter, which was quarter 2, have affected the yearly figure.
Okay, thank you. Next one, which shows up as a red there, is that processing of complaints within 20 days. We're just below the target there, aren't we? And taking quarter 2 in isolation doesn't show the full picture. And hopefully over the longer term, we'll be getting back into meeting that target. Looking at more on that front page there, we don't see any. On to the next page, we have the staff turnover one. I think scrutiny has been through the staff turnover issue widely, hasn't it, over the last couple of weeks when it's gone to scrutiny. So we're just slightly above the year-end target there. So we'll obviously watch as we get to the next quarter on that. Not seeing any other ones of concern on that page. So we move on to the next one. And none of those are showing up of concern. Good to see council tax collections and rate collections, Steve, are staying above target, which is good, getting the money in, which you then can invest in people's services. On to the next page, we have the digital online transactions are below. But again, we've talked about that previously at Cabinet on that. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because we're actually giving more information for help people to resolve the issues they may have, or direct them to services so they don't have to get into a long process of transactions either online or in person. Moving then to the final page, nothing on there. So we move to our second priority, which is that successful and sustainable growing borough, which covers all of our planning and regeneration indicators. And you've, Andy, for you've got one red there, but you want to talk about the whole suite of indicators, please?
Yes, certainly, and it gives me great pleasure to talk about all the indicators, because as we can see, apart from one, absolutely everything is going fine, and I'd like to thank the planning section for the hard work they've put in. This is very, very good, and it is a forward-facing part of what we do. So I think the fact we perform well here reflects well upon the council in general. Looking at the one that's underneath, as ever, the devil is in the detail, and I do draw colleagues' attention to the small print, pointing out that as the leaders allude to with other things, we are caught here by a measure which is about an incremental measure over the whole year. As you can see, actually, we are at 76.5% over our target within this quarter. So things are going in the right direction. We've had a lot of trouble with very complex cases in the past where we're playing catch up. But the thing is that we've pulled out of the dive, so to speak, and we're going in the right direction. So the figures, the raw figures, when we just look on the left-hand side, don't really tell the story that we've got now. That's embedded in the small print on the right-hand side.
Thank you, Andy. We then move to priority 3, which is health, active and safer communities. And there's all of the recycling and waste management ones there for you, David. I'll take them en masse and comment as you wish.
Yeah. Thank you, Leader. The first one is we've dipped below 50% for recycling, which is disappointing. However, this is due to the garden waste tonnages being down during December. Work is currently ongoing. I had another meeting today with officers, and we're targeting communications to improve recycling rates. We got a few things going on that I'll be able to tell you about in due course, but not at this time. The curbside waste, good, 307 kilos per household for the year. The target's under 315 kilos, so that's another target that we've met. The percentage of successful collections was 99.97%. Now, I remember at one of the full councils recently, at the last quarter, it was 99.96. And I remember Councillor Holland saying for every 10,000 collections, they miss 4. Well, the good news for Councillor Holland is it's now 99.97. So for every 10,000 collections, we've only missed 3. So I'm really proud of the team. They're doing an amazing job. And you consider this is for the November, December time with the bad weather that we had. Well done, the team. Yeah. All the other ones are green in this section, and really happy with
Okay, I'm going to call you into, so that's the recycling section. Then you've also got your street cleanliness and street scenes session. Anything to say on that?
Yep. The cleanliness 98.33, still above the 92 target. The level of detritus 97.5, still above the 92 target, which is great news. Not 100%, but we did have a lot of stormy winds during this period, November, December. So a lot of leaves are blown around. So that's probably why. 100% clean for the streets, for the fly tipping, and for the graffiti, which is excellent news. Moving on now to the fly tipping, 651 fly tipping incidents, which is 5.64 average days for having them cleared. 1.69 is the percent that we're able to issue a £500 or a £1,000 fixed penalty. We'll do check every single fly tip. We try and raise a fixed penalty if we have any information that means we can raise a penalty. We want to get the word out that Newcastle-under-Lyme has a zero tolerance of any fly tippings.
Thank you. That moves us on to Craig's area now, which is obviously Museum J2 and the Heritage section. So over to you, Craig.
Thank you, Leader. I think I'll deal with there's 2 red indicators on here, and one of them is the number of people accessing the museum for collections in person only. We've had some severe weather over December, and I think that's directly impacts footfall on the museum. But I think it's worth noting that the target is 63,750. Although these severe weather conditions have happened, we've had several storms, icy conditions, they still attracted 60,000 people. Over 60,000 people still visited the centre, which I think that's an overwhelming achievement, that is. They continue to put on shows with something. They've got a VE Day film and display in the Spotlight Gallery. They're gaining recognition at the museum with a nomination from the Enjoy Staffordshire Tourism Awards. So I think we can reflect on that red indicator as quite a positive, like I say, 60,000 in this weather. Moving on to the second red, which is the Jubilee Customer Satisfaction Net Promoter Score. The figure that we've achieved of 26.09, the national average is 28, and I think we continue to track the national average. Sport England recognised that the NPS peaked in 2021 with a score of 35, again mirroring the Jubilee 2 Centre's achievement for that year. So this performance indicator, it's under review for 2025, and with the view of replacing it with a simpler and more accurate model. And onto the green, onto the membership growth for the museum. It continues to grow above target, and just draw some attention to the referral programme is going very well at the minute. There's 470 people signed up to the referral programme, and adding to the membership growth, this is converting to full membership direct debits at about 60%.
Yeah, I think when we talk about J2, you can judge it by its membership, can't you? And that is well above the target and historically well above what we had pre-COVID, of course, and the lockdowns, which of course affected sports centres across the country. We've come back very strongly, and that's visible there in that figure. Thank you for that, Craig. Moving on to Jill's portfolio related to community safety and wellbeing. Jill.
Thank you, Leader. I'm quite pleased with some of the things that are going on in my area at the moment. As you know, it's always difficult with antisocial behaviour, homeless, and the topics certainly through the winter. But I am quite pleased because certainly homeless presentations have dropped in Q3. We had a rough sleeper count, and at that rough sleeper count, there were 6 rough sleepers in the area. Not that they're all from this area, but there were 6 that presented. That's a reduction of 3 from the previous year. Antisocial behaviour, we continue to work with partners to reduce antisocial behaviour, and also contributing to a county-wide ASB policy, which will outline what members of the public can expect from partners. Statistics are showing that crime and ASB are reducing, particularly in the town centre, and data sharing analysis inform the prioritisation and deployment of resources with the police, so that's why we're getting the results we are. Disabled facilities grants, I am impressed with the team. When we first took that over, it came back in-house and we took the contract on. There were 315 open cases, and the service has been working really hard to bring this to a manageable level. It's now reduced to 173. The Vulnerability Hub continue to work with a high number of cases and continue to see people living in very poor conditions. A real concern at the moment is the cold weather, because we do have people that have got no heating, no cooking facilities. So that is something that really we're looking at the moment. We've got options, or looking at options to contribute to continue the role of the safe recovery officer. At the moment, that's partly funded through the locality deal funding for 25-26, but we are looking at options to continue that.
Thank you, Jill. Moving on to the last priority, which is the town centre. For all 3 indicators there, on footfall, we see obviously a figure of 1.4 million people visiting the town. I think that all the measures that we're doing with the regeneration is aimed at increasing that, and hopefully, such as Keeling Town. I noticed I walked past for lunch there, and there was a healthy footfall in there at lunchtime. That's bringing people into the town for different reasons probably than they would have come in if that place wasn't there. So this is the example of how we can improve footfall on that. Quite pleased that we, even though the data is still a bit patchy coming from the Business Improvement District, we don't really have a clear picture, but we will have as quarters progress, and hopefully see an increase in footfall in the town. But that's closely associated, though, as Steve will now mention, with the car parking situation, also the markets. Over to you.
Yeah, I came in on, I didn't come this Saturday, I came in last Saturday, my wife and daughter, and we parked on the new multi-storey, the clean air, bright, well-lit multi-storey. Good experience there. And then we came out into the town, we walked down to the bottom of the high street, and we had some breakfast there. And I can't sort of exactly, but it was a nice atmosphere. It was, you know, if I go what Councillor Easton's just said about the antisocial behaviour and the work the police are doing in the town. Just in the town, it was just a nice place to be. It was a nice place to be. Your wife and your daughter, a bit of breakfast, have a wander around, and then went back home. It was just a successful town centre song. And those that put it all, Newcastle's terrible, you can't go, blah, blah, blah. No, it wasn't. It was just a nice, pleasant place to go. In a couple of hours on a Saturday morning. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think we obviously at the moment our markets are in obviously the post Christmas, they usually have a bit of a break in January, but they'll be back in force in February. The wonderful artisan market, and also vegan market and record market, and hopefully the makers market making a comeback as well, which we're going to talk to them about. So I think the prospects for, as we get some better weather and spring, is that the towns can be used for these events. We also have the Castle Cars capers. Yes, coming up again, which was really successful towards the end of last year, and another one of those which has been organised by the bid. So I think start of a new year, and we're optimistic about the prospects for our town and events within then. Of course, as we move towards the summer, we'll be having VE and VJ events in and around the town centre as well. So there's plenty to look forward to as we go forward. So really pleased with the town centre for all priority, and that we're moving forward in a positive way. So that's our finance and performance review. We have looked and we have raised issues and give explanations. So all agreed? Thank you. That moves us now to item 7, which is the tree risk management strategy. Over to David.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Newcastle Borough Council owns approximately 650 hectares of land and cares for over 115,000 trees at 307 sites. The proposed tree risk management strategy before you today aims to strike a proportionate and balanced approach between the risks and the benefits gained from trees. In 2023, the Council purchased the EasyTree tree management software package, which has been significant in our being able to plot and manage the Council's tree stock effectively and enhance our tree intelligence. This has enabled our approach to directing existing resources into our higher risk trees and our higher risk tree locations. We have also restructured the street scene team and given more staff to the arboricultural areas. If you look at Appendix 1 on pages 198 and 199 in the report, you will see we have designated usage zones into high, medium, low, and very low. You will also note the frequency method and the timing of inspections for each of those usage zones. In Appendix 2, there is an example of the Borough Council's practical response to recent severe weather events in December 24 at Clough Hall Park in Kidsgrove. And on page 210 in the report, you will see a picture of some of the devastation that was caused. In summary, the implementation and alignment of our approach to managing tree risk throughout the year, as well as during and after a bad weather event, significantly reduces risk to our residents and to the Borough Council employees. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, David. And I think it's really important we have this policy in place. I think we talk a lot about planting trees, and we're going to be planting a lot of trees in the borough. We have planted a lot already, but that management of them is a constant question that's come up, hasn't it, about it? And I think it is right to have this risk management strategy in place. And it's not something new; it's something that's been in place for many years, and it's continually updated to ensure we have obviously safety around the trees, because it can cause serious issues if there are any problems with trees to life and property. I think we saw the damage that could be done by some of the extreme weather events, which you talked about, the possible mini tornado in Kidsgrove. I was up there recently, and you can see the devastation from the amount of trees that have come down as well. So again, I think it's ensuring that the trees we're responsible for are in a fit state. And of course, if the wind is strong and there is a mini tornado, they're going to bring any tree down, no matter what its state. But all we can do is ensure that we have managed that risk. And this strategy allows us to do that, and I completely endorse it. Opens up to any questions or comments. Steve.
Yeah, obviously, Clayton is the jewel in Newcastle's crown, as I keep telling everybody. And the trees in Clayton, the biggest complaint I get is there's too many trees in Clayton, and I think that's if you live in an area and the biggest complaint you get is there's too many trees, you're going the right way, aren't you? And I think I welcome this plan, absolutely superb plan, and thank you very much.
Of course, this is only borough-owned trees, not the trees on the highway, which are the county council who have mirroring policies to their tree stock as well, have the same concerns about safety, and but also, as you quite rightly say, for every 2 or 3 people that want trees removed, particularly outside their own house, the rest of them, population, love the tree-lined streets, and particularly the area I represent, Westlands. It's one of the key features. It's making sure that they are looked after, and we have amazing green spaces around the Westlands as well. It's ensuring that those trees, some have been there 50, 100 years or so, if not longer. And the ones we plant now, which hopefully will be there for that time, have a healthy life and are safe for everybody to enjoy. So with this policy, we have the key risk measures in place to allow us to do that. So thank you for presenting that, David. All agreed with the recommendations? Thank you. That brings us to our next item, which is the Local Development Scheme 25-28, and Andy's introducing this.
Yes, thanks very much, Simon. As the report sets out, this is being done in response to requests from central government, who seemingly can't resist moving the goalposts with planning from one day to the next. But nonetheless, it's a legal requirement. Here's the document. What the local development scheme is doing is setting out or what documents we have which govern our planning policies, and they're sitting there for you. And those of us who've been around a long time will see some rare old favourites here. The Core Spatial Strategy adopted in 2009, and blimey, the old local plan for this borough adopted in 2003. That was when Julius Caesar came over, as I recall. But manifestly, we've now got a new emerging local plan, which is going through the inspection process, and that will replace those two bits of that, although other parts, of course, from the county, the minerals plan, such like, will sit there. We've also outlined in the appendix a timetable for this process, and indeed a nice glossary of planning terms for those poor people who don't know what these terms mean already. So I think it's something we have to do. It's being done efficiently. As I say, the documents are required by March. We won't be through the inspection thing by then, but those two big documents, big, very, very old documents, will be replaced by an up-to-date document quite soon afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Andy. And even without the pushing and pressure from the government to build those extra 2,000 houses in Newcastle, which are something which has been foisted on us by this government since the general election, along with some other things we've talked about earlier, such as this forced local government reorganisation. I think this process of keeping our plan up to date would have continued anyway. This has just put an extra urgency from the government's point of view, not necessarily from us, because we've just agreed a council plan that will obviously be out to the inspector in the summer, and hopefully we'll come back with the first local plan on the books in Newcastle, as you quite rightly said, since 2003. Let's not talk about the years wasted on the joint local plan with Stoke, which obviously was doomed to failure from the start, and a perfect example where sort of on an approach of a North Staffordshire footprint, those things do not work for local areas. And I'll bring it back again to the government's forced reorganisation. It's another example of how it doesn't work, and how Newcastle's green spaces were being used as sacrifice for Stoke to reach its housing figures. That would happen in a North Staffordshire authority, I am sure. So we must guard against that. But our local plan, borough local plan, which is going through inspection at the moment, is based on the requirements that we need in this borough for our growth, not only in housing, but of employment and jobs. And of course, when we work on the next one in due course, we will be giving the priority to our borough again, if we get the chance to do so. Any other comments from members on that one? No? Okay, agree the recommendations? Great. Thank you. That brings us to our forward plan. We'll quickly go through that. The first couple of pages are relating to today's meeting. We've met all the requirements and got all the reports in for this meeting. Our next meeting on the 18th of March, we'll have a Wallis Quarry update, CCDV Newcastle Town Centre renewal contract, Town Centre regeneration. Big item will be coming for us on the next stage of the regeneration of our town through the town deal money and the council investment. Then we will be looking at the recycling materials collection, including flexible plastics and cartons. David will be bringing that to us. Then we're having an update on our urban carbon capture areas, urban and rural now, relating to protecting our green space for the long term. And then also creation of the country park, Lyme Park, on part of the former Keele Golf Course will be coming to us in March. And then the next one is the May Council, where we're looking at the award of the shared service hub for Kidsgrove, and also Football Foundation Home Advantage Programme, and then, of course, another Wallis Quarry odour update. Can we agree the forward plan? Thank you. That brings us to item 10, which is urgent business. Haven't got any. Disclosure of event information. We don't have any items to exclude the public this time, and we haven't had any requests for speaking from members of the public or other councillors. So that concludes the Cabinet meeting for today. Thank you.